Hey everybody, this is Alex Merced, and you're listening to sort of like the first like real episode of this podcast, Living Better. Okay, where I just want to talk about like living better. And I figured the first episode, let me just talk about my weight loss journey because some of you may have read my Substack blog on this where I talked about this. But basically, I in the last like 3-4 months, I've lost 40 pounds. I never thought of myself as like a huge guy. I don't think anyone thinks of me like I was never like I was big. I was technically obese, but I was never like like 600 pound life large. Um, but I did get pretty big, and it was having some pretty bad effects on my health, including like damage to my liver. Um, you know, Arguably some issues with my eyes. Three, definitely like pressure on my pancreas, pre-diabetic. So getting all these kind of like diagnoses like all within like the same couple of weeks. It was definitely a shock to me, and I was like, okay, I need to change my life. And what I want to talk about is just sort of like the process of doing that, in hopes that like other people who want to make that change, they can do so, or see like a path to doing so. It did require me just sort of like, it does require discipline. At the end of the day, there's no sort of way to get where you want to be, which is healthier. And again, a lot of people focus on weight loss instead of focusing on health improvement. Although health improvement should result in weight loss if you're overweight. Um, but the difference is that you're going to get other benefits other than just weight loss if you focus on your health: better skin, better hair, clearer thought, better focus, better endurance, better energy levels. These are all things that can happen. And generally, like if you're in that situation where you do need to lose a lot of weight, you probably also need help in all those other areas as well. So again, focus on health. And bottom line is this: like if you just want to sort of like the point, the bottom line is like no shocker, you need more exercise and to eat better food. Okay, but oftentimes we hear this, and this sounds just very unappealing. Exercise sounds like, well, hey, am I gonna be spending like hours in the gym doing like these really intense exercises and putting myself into like having to feel pain every day, uh, and feeling out of breath, and then two, like, does this mean I'm only eating like raw spinach all the time? This doesn't sound very exciting. This sounds very like sad. And no, it's not. I'm actually eating pretty healthy. You can eat pretty delicious foods, and exercise doesn't have to be anything crazy. I started out with just pretty much like a half hour walk in the mornings. I would just wake up like an hour early, so that way I can take my time to get ready. I'd wake up an hour earlier than I normally would, and just do like start off with like a half hour to 45-minute walk each day. Generally my at the beginning my goal was to really kind of do like a 3,000 to 6,000 steps to start my day. So I do recommend getting like a Fitbit or something that can count your steps and measure. Like I right now have a Fitbit Versa 2, which is pretty sweet because I can not only take a look at my steps, but I can also take a look at my heart rate and measure sort of like where am I doing with exercise, how many minutes of intensity have I gotten to the day. A lot of really useful information that helps me like make decisions day to day, as far as like, okay, hey, should I exercise a little harder today? Exercise a little less than, but start with a nice walk. You'd be surprised. Like a walk can do, like, you can jog for half an hour and get the same effect as like a 2 hour walk. But at the end of the day, and like in the beginning, just walk, half hour walk. Okay, one, you're gonna get a couple different benefits from walking. One, your body's just gonna start getting used to physical activity again. Two, just walking, that it's gonna lower cortisol levels because it's a nice, it's gonna be relaxing. It's gonna get your energy up. It can also cause increases in cortisol as you start increasing your walk and start, stressing your body a little bit more. And cortisol just basically is the thing that comes out when your body is stressed, either because you're stressed mentally or because you're stressed physically. Um, and then cortisol is not good in the sense that cortisol can affect your metabolism, affect your brain, affect all sorts of things. But at the same time, your body needs to learn how to recover from cortisol. So learning how to de-stress, how to recover, is part of it. Like learning, like your body needs stressors so it can learn to overcome those stressors and become stronger. Your body's what's called anti-fragile. This was a term coined by Nassim Taleb. Wrote a really good book on the subject. But the basic idea is this: it's something that's anti-fragile It's just that something that actually improves the more you stress it. Okay. Um, yeah. So basically, your body can improve if you introduce stress. So, a little bit of bad can be good. A whole lot of bad can be bad. Okay. So if you stress your body too much, you might just really just collapse and die. You eat too many bad foods. You just get big. Your heart gets weakened and you die. Um, so um, it's not about being perfect all the time, because being perfect, as far as which your health and exercise, well, let's say your health was perfect all the time and you never had to introduce your body with any stress, then your body would never learn or strengthen. So um, yeah, part of getting better is not being perfect. Okay, because then your body learns how to deal with imperfections. You just don't want to overdo it. Okay, and that's the problem. Nowadays, people don't do any exercise, so the body doesn't really have those kind of stresses to learn how to overcome. And they're eating an excess amount of food, so they're causing so much stress on their body from the food intake the body can't deal with it. Then their body never gets a chance to recover because people eat all the time. But yeah, just a half-hour walk can really be a good way to start. Uh, you'll hear a lot of people say like the vast majority of weight loss is set up by your diet, and that's 100% true. Um, but exercise offers you a lot of benefits. Again, just going to make your body work better. One, you're burning calories, which means that means the amount of pressure you have to put on like what you eat is less. And three, it is going to just give you better energy and also improve your metabolism, because your body's going to be like looking to burn energy. So never a bad thing to just go out for a walk multiple times a day. Although like generally I try to get all my exercise out at the beginning of the day, which may not necessarily be ideal, but again, it's just make sure that I am getting exercise every day. So that was the first step, and then over time I ended up ratcheting up the amount of exercise. So now I'm doing generally about a 2-hour walk at the beginning of each day, which is about 12,000 steps. I generally can get 6,000 steps in an hour, about 1,000 steps every 10 minutes with a moderate pace. So that's on the exercise bit. And again, you can then introduce other exercises, whether it be jogging, doing resistance training, calisthenics, um, as you feel comfortable. But the idea is that you don't have to go from zero to hero. You can just start soft. Okay. Walking can have quite a bit of effect, and I can tell you that from personal experience. Walking can do a lot, especially in those early stages. Two, the other big thing is one, stop snacking. Okay, basically, if you want snack foods, then include them in your meals, but otherwise don't have like small snacks in between meals. The reason being is to understand the whole like insulin effect. Whenever your body basically consumes anything, so literally like you eat anything, you're generally going to generate insulin, which is not a bad thing. The idea is that your body assumes there's going to be some glucose that's going to be entering your blood system, and then the insulin sort of like tells your cells in your bloodstream, they're like, hey, just so you know, there's glucose coming, you better get ready to catch it. Okay, because basically you have all this glucose that your food is turned into, that's running through your bloodstream, and it's up to the cells to go kind of fish it out of the bloodstream and take it in. Okay, so what happens is that you generate insulin, and it does that. But what happens is that every time you eat, you keep generating this additional insulin response. It's kind of like imagine like a bowling alley. With a bowling alley, you hit the ball with a bowling ball, or you hit the pins with the bowling ball, and that triggers the machine to know that it needs to reset the lane. Okay, so there's a trigger. Problem is, what if you keep throwing bowling balls? You're going to kind of hit the machine. The machine is never going to be able to complete resetting the pins, and you're going to break the machine. And that's what happens. You just keep banging that. You keep generating more insulin, you keep triggering that, and you do it so many times that cells are just like, I'm not listening to you anymore. Okay, they just break. It's called insulin resistance, which means like your cells, when that insulin's in your bloodstream, doesn't respond, so it doesn't bother trying to collect the glucose from the system. So now you have more glucose or blood sugar kind of floating in your high levels of blood sugar that you're not using. Okay, and the problem isn't the high levels of glucose; it's the fact that your cells aren't taking it in, so you're like low on energy. Um, so that's kind of like how you become a diabetic. Okay, so the idea is that you're trying to reverse that trend, generate insulin less. That's so you're kind of being diagnosed as pre-diabetic. Again, I'm not a doctor. This is just based on what I kind of learned over the last several months. Um, that's kind of what you're trying to avoid. So the idea is you want to be sensitive to insulin. You want your cells to like just a little bit of insulin. Cells are go like, yep, I'm gonna go fish out some glucose. Okay, so you want to trigger insulin as infrequently as possible so that way your cells don't become resistant. So don't snack. Okay. Generally ideal 2 meals a day. Some people do 1 meal a day. Some people can still do 3 meals a day. I think the ideal is 2 meals a day. Just two nice sized meals about 5 hours apart. And then no snacking in between. So like you can drink water. Um, you know, do things that are not going to trigger an additional insulin response. Okay, so I can drink water, drink tea, drink a black coffee in between. So that way you reduce that insulin resistance. So that's something you, and again, just by in here you haven't spent any money. Again, going for a walk costs you nothing. Going, just eating a more, no snacking and 2 meals a day costs you nothing. It's just changing the way you're doing what you're doing with the foods you're already doing them with. Okay, and then exercising, again, all you have to do is maybe wake up a little early and you can fit that in. And your body does get used to it and you'll actually sleep better. Okay. Ideal world, if you do 2 meals a day, ideal world would be breakfast and lunch. So you would kind of do your morning walk, eat at breakfast, okay, or do breakfast and then do a morning walk, depending on how you want to do it. Either way, kind of there's pros and cons. And then eat another meal at lunch, and then just not eat for the rest of the day. Now, again, the reasons for that is because one, your body's going to be a little bit further along from digesting by the time you go to sleep, so you're going to sleep easier. You're going to be much further along into sort of like a fasted state. And basically, when I say fasted state, I just mean a state where your body doesn't expect that there's going to be any additional glucose, okay, because you haven't eaten anything. So then it's what's going to do. It's going to switch over. So certain hormones are going to get triggered and whatnot. But essentially, what's going to happen is that the body's going to start releasing your fat stores. So any fat you have in storage is going to start saying, okay, hey, let's release this fat into the bloodstream so it can be used as energy. And your body will start using the fat as energy. And again, the first couple of times is going to feel not so great. Eventually, your body becomes fat adapted, becomes used to doing it, and it'll feel actually pretty good because, fat, unlike food, you're not eating and then not eating. Fat's just kind of there, so you're going to have a much more like even energy levels, which is nice. But again, I mean, me personally, I end up doing like lunch and dinner. One is because you want to eat dinner with the family. If you do breakfast and lunch, you're basically eating all your meals alone. But ideal world, it would be breakfast and lunch. But either is fine. Again, 2 meals a day with no snacking between, or even 3 meals a day with no snacking between, you're going to see an improvement. And generally, I would try to keep whatever meals you do have sort of within like 4 or 5 hours apart. So if you're doing like 3 meals a day, it should be basically like 1 meal, 3 hours a day, 3 hours later, another meal, then 3 hours later, another meal. If you're doing two meals a day, then it should be 1 meal, then like 5 hours later, another meal. Okay, but you do want to make sure that you do not snack in that middle time because you want your body to sort of come down. You want that insulin level to get used to coming down and staying down and then going back up when you eat again. Okay, so that way your body doesn't think, because again, what essentially happens if you're just snacking all the time, okay, your body's constantly pumping insulin into your bloodstream. Again, you're going to develop that insulin resistance, and your body's just going to think, hey, I just have to do this all the time. And that's just going to be the way your body adapts, which isn't good. Okay, it makes it really hard to burn fat if your body always has insulin, because the minute insulin hits your bloodstream, your body will not burn fat as energy, because it's like You told me to go use glucose, so you don't want that. Again, not a bad thing. It just depends on like what your particular goal is. So again, assuming you're trying to do weight loss, you're trying to burn the fat on your body, you want to sort of kind of make sure that you give time for your body to be in those fasted states. Even if you're not like doing full blown fasting where you're like waiting for a whole day. But again, if you follow sort of like that meal regimen, you'll just kind of be inadvertently intermittent fasting, and be having a a good handful of hours where you're in sort of that fat burning stage each day, and hacking away at the fat in your body over time. Um, that does not mean like you do need to watch your calories in the sense that you should not overeat. Okay, the goal isn't necessarily to eat less in the sense that like, well, I want to, I should only eat 1,000 calories a day. That would be a bad idea. You might end up there because you go down to 2 meals a day, depending on how you structure your meals. You might end up under eating. Problem is that your body will adapt to what you do. Okay, so if you eat less than you normally have been, or less than your body needs, your body will just learn to run on less. And then this becomes like this journey where you keep chasing a lower and lower number of calories to continue losing weight. What you want is to have those, again, longer periods so that way your body is burning fat in between meals, so your body is storing less fat. But you're still doing maintenance. And again, that's another reason why you want to exercise. So that way, especially like eventually you want to build muscle because muscle will increase your metabolism. Like usually the reason why one of the reasons your metabolism lowers as you lose weight is because oftentimes you're losing muscle, and because muscle takes energy to maintain. So the more muscle you have, the more energy your body is just gonna use up at a base level because you got more stuff to take care of. You got more stuff you got to rebuild. So building muscle will allow you to eat more. Plus, having muscle has lots of other benefits. But again, it depends on what you're trying to do. Like in the early stages, you're trying to burn the fat, so you really just kind of want to have those long stretches of between meals. And me, I enjoy doing the occasional 24 to 48 hour fast. Nowadays, what I do is like basically every Tuesday, I stop eating at 7, and I don't eat again until Thursday at 11. Okay, so I end up getting around like a 40 hours of no eating. That gives some time for my body to relax or to rebuild, because it gives time for your body to focus on doing other things like rebuilding itself, aka autophagy, where it's recycling junk and turning it back into good stuff. So you can get, but you also get autophagy when you exercise. So the more exercise you do, you get autophagy, meaning your body's going to recycle stuff. And when you go through long periods of time without eating, you're going to get autophagy. Your body's going to rebuild stuff. So you do those two things, your body's going to rebuild itself quite a bit. But there's additional benefits you get from like really long fasts. Like I think like at some point you start like generating stem cells, so you can actually literally replace damaged tissue and things like that. So you go like a step beyond autophagy. But from what I've read, it's generally probably best to not go beyond a 48, maybe even a 72-hour fast. Like that's where I would max out. At that point, you're probably losing more muscle than the additional benefit you're getting from fasting. Okay? But generally when you're fasting, it's just really just water. Okay, at best, like during your fast, you can drink black coffee, green tea, lemon water, apple cider vinegar. Which are generally those 4 things you can generally kind of like always drink. And when I say apple cider vinegar, I don't mean like go chug apple cider vinegar. It means like put a spoon in a cup of water, like literally just a spoon. Don't overdo it because it will like the acid will like burn your throat and hurt your enamel. You just want to have like a really small amount that's heavily diluted because it does help reduce insulin resistance. It'll help kickstart a lot of the things you want happening during those fasted states. Same thing for like lemon water. So generally drinking lemon water and some apple cider vinegar every day is a good habit. I'm generally at the point where I do it before both meals. So basically anytime I plan on having a meal, right before I'm going to make myself a drink with like apple cider vinegar and lemon juice diluted in water, maybe with like a little monk food. And that's another thing to do. Cut sugar out. Cut sugar out. There's really like, there's nothing good about sugar. Like, there's literally like nothing you can say for sugar other than, It's a quick way to get a whole bunch of glucose in your body, which is useful if you're doing really, really intense workouts. But even then, like there's better ways to do it. So there's really no good reason for you to be eating sugary drinks or foods have. And then the thing is that when you start trying to eliminate sugar, you're gonna start realizing how many foods that you think wouldn't have sugar have sugar in them. Bacon has sugar. All sorts of things have sugar added to them. So finding sugar-free alternatives gets really, really tricky. So here's where you start like things get like a little bit pricier. Like just getting rid of sugary drinks, which is a good first step. And just drinking water and water with lemon, water with is probably a good first step. So again, you start with like yes, just like the walking, the 2 meals with no snacking, and drinking water. Like you start there, you're gonna see massive effects really quick. And again, you haven't spent a penny. But when you are really started this, dedicate a little bit more time, so upping the amount of time you're exercising, the intensity of that exercise, and then when you're willing to spend money, again, start using like sugar substitutes. Like generally the ones you want to use are monk fruit, erythritol, and stevia. Be careful for any of the X in the raw packets, like those little individual packets of stevia or monk fruit that are like they say in the raw, because they generally fill them with something called maltodextrin. And maltodextrin is not what you want because it is going to trigger an insulin response, which ruins the whole point. The reason you use erythritol, monk fruit, stevia is because generally they're not going to trigger insulin. So you can sweeten, a little water with lemon in between meals and not have to worry about having this additional insulin spike. Or you can sweeten, baked goods, which you should be baking with like coconut flour, and not have to worry about like, the excessive like insulin response that you would get when you bake with like normal grain flours with sugars. Okay, even though that the traditional cookies taste so good, you can make pretty decent baked goods with like coconut flour and monk fruit. Just just take some practice. To really like kick this up to the next level, you really do have to learn like start like making your own foods, because one, it gets expensive buying a lot of it. If you just buy it. So if there's things you can make yourself that save you a lot of money and have a lot of health benefit, like growing your own sprouts, your own microgreens. Literally, you can buy some couple trays off Amazon for like $7, and then see a bag of seeds, which you can make probably enough sprouts for like 6 months for like $20, and then literally a spray bottle to spray water, and then you just put some seeds on a paper towel each week, and then spray it every 12 hours. Make sure that it's nice and moist, and then every 5 days you'll have a fresh batch of sprouts that you can then harvest and eat. They're going to be healthier. And you're paying a lot less per, and it's kind of a fun. It's kind of fun. And then fermenting your own foods instead of like, because there's a lot of pickles and pickled food, and pickles are good, and pickle juice is fine. There is something to drinking the occasional pickle juice. Problem is like most pickles you see are pickled, which means they're using vinegar and salt and water. And the problem is that the vinegar kills a lot of the bacteria in the water. You want fermented cucumbers or fermented vegetables, because when you do fermentation, which means instead of using vinegar, water, and salt, you use just water and salt, you're going to grow a lactobacillus, which is something you want. You want this bacteria to generate. It's going to want to change the flavor of the pickle to what you associate with a traditional pickle. But also when you eat it, you're going to get this what's called a probiotic effect. So think of probiotic as meaning I'm putting bacteria in my stomach. And then by eating a lot of fiber, you have a prebiotic effect, meaning that fiber is going to feed those bacteria, because those bacteria are going to help you in lots of ways. When they're going to help you be able to digest certain foods that you can't digest, so like your lactose intolerance, some of that's going to probably go away if you improve your gut biome. You're also going to digest a lot of foods that might be contributing, causing problems, will cause less problems. You're going to just a lot of good things are going to happen when you have a healthy gut biome. So you want to basically think of like not only growing your own sprouts, but growing your gut bacteria. So that's where the fermented foods come in. So basically fermenting your own sauerkraut, creating your own sauerkraut and kimchi at home can save you a lot of money. Although buying a bag of sauerkraut and kimchi isn't that expensive, that I'll just buy those from the store. They're fine. Pickles are worth fermenting because it's really hard to find fermented pickles at the grocery store. But you can pickle other fruits like okra, literally anything you can just ferment. You can just put it in a jar, um, and you're good to go. So basically, yeah, if you stick to that, you're pretty good. I mean, um, one way I like to think about it is like far as like what to think about what you're eating. Think of BAGF, bag F. Okay, so B for berries. So when it comes to fruits, you're probably gonna be better off with berries. You're gonna have the least sort of insulin response, despite their sweetness. Actually, they're filled with antioxidants, so you're also cleaning out your body at the same time. Doesn't mean pig out on berries. It just means you can have like a small amount of berries each day. Enjoy yourself. Think of it as like your nice little treat each day. But berries, so that means like, that could be like tart cherries, strawberries, blueberries, raspberries, blackberries. I generally like enjoy a lot of raspberries. Um, so that's berries. And then A, animal foods. Okay, and then again, you can generally find vegan substitutes for most of these, but the idea being like, you know, grass-fed beef. Not any beef, grass-fed beef. And again, this is when you're ready to spend more money. Like in the beginning, just the 2 meals a day, the walking, the no snacking should get you pretty well started and get you well on your way. But again, as you improve the things you eat, you're going to start seeing additional and additional benefits. So again, animals, basic grass-fed beef, and there's different reasons. I'll in different episodes we'll talk about why grass-fed, pasture-raised chickens, pasture-raised pork, wild-caught sockeye salmon. These are going to things that you generally want to like be putting in your diet, and then of course eggs from pasture-raised chickens. Um, basically, really that should be sort of like part of every meal, or again some sort of vegan supplement, like or vegan substitute. So like, let me think about that for a second. I mean, there really isn't like a vegan replacement for eggs, but you can find like different legumes that might be able to be like a suitable like lentils that might be a suitable like replacement for like protein and whatnot. But then you want that sort of like a lot of your meals. So again, berries, animals, G for greens. Okay, lots of kale, lots of spinach. Always cook your spinach. Do not eat raw spinach because raw spinach has what's called phytates. And peanuts have this too, or actually a lot of nuts do, which makes sense. Phytates are essentially something that's in the food that prevents you from really being able to like enjoy the nutrients from the food. So you're eating the spinach, but you're not really getting much benefit from the spinach if you're eating it raw, because the phytates are going to chelate a lot of a lot of that nutrition. So yeah, so you want to cook your spinach, but if you want raw, raw greens, then Swiss chard, arugula, kale are all phenomenal options. But yeah, you want a lot of that. If there's something you can literally like, if you always want more, you can always get more. It would be the greens. Okay, you can just go to town. Okay, on your greens, and they don't like a lot of people are like, oh, that sounds boring. It doesn't have to be. Like you cook spinach and just drizzle a little bit of oil over it. Maybe sprinkle a little bit of what's called nutritional yeast, which is going to be your new favorite thing because it gives everything a nice little flavor. But it's super nutritious because it's loaded with all sorts of vitamins and whatnot. It's just basically activated yeast reinforced with nutritional stuff. Uh, Pick it up. It has like a cheesy flavor. It tastes good. You can sprinkle it on your popcorn, although you probably shouldn't be eating popcorn. But you can like sprinkle it on pretty much any food to give it flavor. So you could have like lots of sautéed spinach. Put a little bit of oil, like either olive oil or sesame seed oil. Um, and I'll talk about oils in a second. And yeah, just put a little bit of nutritional yeast, and it's actually gonna be pretty good. You could probably eat that by itself. But again, if you're only having 2 meals a day, it shouldn't be an issue. You'll get used to that. So like usually like my lunch meal is basically some sort of like usually cooked spinach, a couple pasture raised eggs, pasture raised bacon, um, topped off with some sauerkraut, some sesame oil, and a little nutritional yeast. Like, and then that's a meal, and you'll see it's a very savory meal. Like you're not starving yourself by any regards. Um, and you'll see like you feel pretty good. There's a lot of nutrition in that, and because fats are good. Okay, and again, a lot of this stuff I'm going to do episodes where I can talk more about this in depth. But so two quick points, and then I'm going to start wrapping this up. Oils, basically cook with avocado and coconut oil. So use those as your cooking oils, or ghee. That's like clarified butter. You could use butter, but ghee's better. Ghee kind of has a nice taste. It grows on you. So you can use that for cooking, and then for like flavor. So when I'm pouring on like the sautéed spinach, I'll usually pour either like olive oil or toasted sesame seed oil. Again, key thing there, toasted sesame seed oil. If you have like raw sesame seed oil, you could use that for cooking. Although 90% of what I see in the store is toasted sesame seed oil, then you use it for. That means it's already cooked. Don't cook it again. Won't get into it now, but just don't cook it again. So if it's toasted, it's gone through the cooking process already. And yeah, basically eat that. And then fats are good. The best fats are monosaturated fats. So that means like go to town on olives and macadamia nuts. Okay, this is why olive oil is great, which is why macadamia oil is another oil to kind of try out and pour on your food sometimes. I'm not sure how that tastes yet. I just bought my first couple of bottles of macadamia nut oil, so we'll see how that goes. But I do have lots of macadamia nuts. But the thing is, like, going to town on olives. Like, you won't have to worry about eating too much monosaturated fats because it's hard to eat enough monosaturated fats. Macadamia nuts are expensive, and olive oils aren't the kind of thing you can really eat in mass. Olives have grown on me, but there's still not something I could eat like a whole bowl of olives that is sitting. Like I can eat a handful of olives, and generally I'm pretty good at that point. So generally, feel free to go to town on those, because chances are you're going to end up eating those in moderation, either because of the cost of macadamia nuts, or two, because olives are good, but they're generally not good in mass. And I'll leave it at that. I mean, again, if you take the advice that I've already gone over through, you're going to see tremendous benefits. But I mean, at the end of the day, like the core changes are 2 meals a day, no snacking, get some exercise. Doesn't have to be necessarily every day, but at least every other day. But if you're just doing walking, like the way I started, I do it a little bit every day. It just makes it easier to do the habit. And if you do that, you'll start seeing some drastic changes pretty quick, because it is a shock to your system if you start doing the exercise. It's going to be a shock to your system if you're not snacking anymore. It's going to be a shock to your system if you're going like 12 to 18 hours between your last meal on one day and the first meal of your next day. And your body will adapt to it in ways you will see that the fat on your body will reduce. But again, if you want to increase your metabolism, build muscle. Okay, so basic bottom line is, like, if you want to be able to eat larger meals, then you need to build muscle and or exercise more, burn more calories throughout the day to make up for that. So that way your body doesn't store anything. And at the end of the day, like, make sure you burn energy, because you generally want your body burning fat, but do keep in mind, and you do want to eat large amounts of fat, but fat does store as fat because it's fat. So if you overdo it on the fats, that's just as bad. Point is, don't overeat. Like, have your 2 meals a day. They can be very hearty meals, because again, you only need 2 meals a day, and they're nice and spaced out apart, so you have plenty of time to burn the calories in between them. But no snacking. And again, to the extent that you can, lean on the monounsaturated fats, lean on omega-3s when you're consuming fattier foods, which means, like, lots of fish, to the extent you can. Generally, it's always hard to really have enough omega-3s, and it is really hard to really have enough monounsaturated fats. But it doesn't mean the other fats are bad. It's just like those fats are more fats, like especially particularly saturated fats, are fats you want, but in moderation. And then, yeah, I mean, the way I would look at it is, like, if you try to eat monounsaturated fats, you're generally going to end up designing a better meal. You're never gonna, it's like, just because of the nature of the foods that are in these different categories, you're rarely gonna end up hitting enough monounsaturated fat. And if you're actively trying to gear that way, you're not gonna overdo it on the saturated and trans fats. So your body will be able to just handle everything just fine. And yeah, I can just listen to this a couple times. There's a lot in this. I'll be doing other more smaller focused episodes going forward, but hopefully this gives you an idea. These are many of the things that I've done in order to kind of achieve the results that I've been getting. Again, 40 pounds in like 3 months. You know, I'd have like plateaued a little bit, so I'm still like now I'm like losing maybe like half a pound a week. But I'm still making progress. Like I'm still seeing like the trend moving in the right direction. I'm still seeing my body composition change in the sense that like my waist is getting smaller. I am still seeing like positive changes as I continue to do these things on top of like the better focus, the better energy that I have. So take that for what it's worth. My name is Alex Merced. Have a great day and enjoy.